Hello and welcome to Game Token Watch with me, John Jordan. So we're looking at how our portfolio has done during January 2019. Just to point out, as I always do, this is not investment advice. This is a purely intellectual exercise that I'm doing because I'm interested in the blockchain space, particularly in the blockchain game space. So looking at some of the tokens that I think are interesting. So don't take this as investment advice, but I think it's interesting to talk through every month what's kind of been going on and run it as a some sort of professional-ish portfolio. So actually putting some money in, very small amounts of money, certainly well under $1,000 at the moment. So don't get your hopes up. I do not expect to be rich. I don't hope to lose it all, but I wouldn't be surprised if I did. So that's where we are. So let's have a look at January. So we can see here the kind of trajectory of what we have kind of seen as a trend, I guess, towards the end of 2018 has continued. So the kind of whole crypto winter thing, you can see the mid-November, everything was looking fairly rosy, as much as these things are. And then we had this massive kind of collapse. And then we've kind of picked up a little bit. And then we've kind of, in recent days, had a bit of a drop off again. So the change was down 30% from the start of this graph, which is obviously not good if you're treating this as a serious investment, which I'm not, and actually kind of, I guess, compared to the larger cryptocurrencies, it's actually not too bad. But yeah, there we go. So we can have a quick look actually at what it looked like in December. So last time we had a look at the portfolio, we were here, so we'd kind of actually not down quite so much. We were on an uptick. Obviously, with all these kind of things, it depends exactly on the day that you do your graphs, particularly with crypto stuff, which is changing, has very strong kind of daily volatility up and down. So everything with a pinch of salt, but we're down pretty substantially there. So let's have a look at now. So let's have a look at what we have in the portfolio. So not a lot of changes actually compared to previously. This is January. So we have number one is the biggest component is Mana, which is the token from Decentraland. Next to that, and these are all roughly the same kind of size. There's Mana, and then there's Enjin Coin from Enjin. Then there's Wax from Wax OP Skins, and then LOOM from LOOM Network. So the only kind of real change in this kind of relative pie chart compared to the obviously absolutely the value of these things has gone down. But if we look at where we were in December, so actually exactly the same. So I've not changed my holdings in Mana, Enjin or Wax. I have got some more LOOM. So real quickly, well, we just click back to the actually January one. So you can see here, LOOM is now not quite the equivalent level of the other three, but it a project, as I say, I'm kind of more interested in at the moment. So we'll go into a bit more detail now about each token and what's been going on in the past month, and my views on what that might mean for the coming months. Okay, first up, let's look at Mana, the token of the Decentraland project. So I'm just looking at this in CoinGecko. Obviously, other websites available for looking at this sort of thing, but CoinGecko works fine for me. So Decentraland, we can see here, if we look here, kind of over different time periods. So from a year to a month to 14 days to a week, whatever. Basically, pretty much downward. This is the graph over the last 30 days. So a pretty big drop off here, 10th of Jan, and then it's been just bobbling around ever since. Now kind of all-time low. A couple of things worth looking at though is so the market cap is still kind of fairly reasonable for these kind of game tokens. These game tokens tend to be fairly small projects. But this Mana Decentraland is a fairly still well supported project in terms of community activity. So market cap of just under $45 million, and trading wise, 24-hour trading, we've got $1.5 million worth. So been reading some stuff around this, and generally, well, not generally recognised, but some certainly one commentator is saying he assumes now a kind of an alt token kind of project is dead if it has a market cap of less than 20 million and a daily activity trading volume of less than 200,000. I'm not saying I agree with that, but I think it's an interesting kind of measuring stick, I suppose. Decentraland well above those, so we're not kind of worried about Decentraland going away any point soon from that kind of fundamental point of view. Have a quick look at the website to remind ourselves. So a decentralized world, works on open standards, so Ethereum based, and kind of interesting. So Decentraland, I say, is pretty busy. So this is just its blog. We can see here they've been during January, it's quite busy. They had some land sales, so they were selling kind of virtual real estate parcels in their platform. The platform, should point out, is still not really open for the public yet. It's still available for developers who are building things in there. People are building kind of VR. It's very VR based, but there's VR projects, there's game projects in there. Anything you can kind of think about, kind of Second Life type kind of approach, I suppose. They've got this kind of contest starting for creators, talking about the land parcel size, the SDK for building things. And so this is highly technical for people who want to get involved in actually building stuff in this game. You have to be, a developer. You can't just do it as a kind of punter, although that may happen further down the line. So certainly not being reflected in token pricing, which is kind of fine, I suppose, at this point, because the project's not live. But lots going on in Decentraland, so I'm still quite interested in Decentraland. I guess with all these kind of generally with blockchain stuff and with game tokens in particular, it's interesting to see the coupling or decoupling of activity in those projects and actually the token sales. So I think we're seeing maybe at least certainly what I thought a year ago, these things will be quite tightly coupled. We're seeing them actually being quite decoupled. So at the moment, you don't really use mana unless you're buying land in mana in Decentraland, and that's not really a mass market proposition at the moment. It's for very small numbers of people, probably people who've already been involved in the ICO. So probably not vast amounts of kind of activity from people who haven't really been involved in the Decentraland community. So that's where we are with that. Okay, let's move on to the next token. Okay, next up we're looking at Enjin Coin. So again, through CoinGecko, we can look here and we can see market cap is $25 million. 24-hour trading volume is $2.7 million. So we're okay in terms of our kind of rough ceiling. When we look back at kind of performance, though, we're actually very similar to Decentraland, so we're negative on all on all time periods. And we can see here, this is for the last 30 days that it's been pretty much a steady decline. Not quite at all-time lows, but actually getting pretty close to them. So what is Enjin Coin? So Enjin Coin is a quite a strongly focused on game blockchain game products. So it's a kind of a platform approach, kind of a more open platform approach than say Decentraland. It's a more kind of technology-based platform approach that everyone will be using these Enjin Coins, and so that's some quite powerful mechanics in terms of how interoperability works between games, and basically has Enjin Coin works as a kind of a backstop cryptocurrency game token for all these games that might have their own tokens as well. I'm not going into too much detail on that. That's something for another video, I imagine. Have a quick look at the website. So this is the blog. Actually, Medium is where they communicate with. So there's always quite a lot going on with Enjin. So they've just announced they've had their wallet out for a while. They've just done an update, and now they have multi-swap support. So you can convert tokens within the wallet. Whether people want to do that, I don't know. I mean, there are kind of other decentralized exchanges, and actually they've. Enjin has done a deal with people like Bancor and Changely, people like that. Other interesting thing that they've done recently is they have this kind of block explorer, which they call Enjin X. So this is for Ethereum. It's kind of interesting if you're into this kind of stuff. So you can see Ethereum blocks closing, transactions on the Ethereum blockchain. You can see blocks closing, who the miner was, and a bit more interesting, I suppose, is we can look at tokens running on Ethereum. So ERC20, get it right. ERC20 coin, so we can see here what's going on here with the usual stuff, Binance, USDC, Maker, Zilliqa just launched, so all that kind of stuff. So it's a Enjin technically pretty good when it comes to blockchain and games. The big issue with Enjin at the moment is they have quite a lot of games signed up. I think over a dozen now. None of them are live. So there's no in that sense, there's no kind of a user demand because none of the games that will use the coin are out yet. So again, a bit like Decentraland, we're kind of assuming at some point that when these projects go live, then there'll be some sort of kind of user demand for the tokens. That may or may not happen, I don't know. I think now, as I say, I think each project will have a very different kind of trajectory in terms of how that pans out. But there we go with Enjin. So I'm certainly not selling them or anything at the moment, probably not buying any more, but a bit more investigation, I think, into what games are using it and when they're coming out, and what we kind of see in terms of kind of audience that we expect for those kind of games. That'll give us a good idea, hopefully, of usage in the future. And so moving on to Wax, everyone's favourite game token. Not necessarily, but there's a lot of interest in Wax, I think. Looking at CoinGecko, so we can see here market cap just over close to $30.7 million. Trading volume is low, actually, just under $250,000 in 24-hour trading volume. Reason for that, which we'll go into. Again, looking at kind of price over different periods of time, negative all the way. And if we look at 30-day activity in terms of the dollar price of the token, we have a big peak mid-January, lots of volume going on there, and then it kind of continued its downward trajectory. So what's going on with Wax? So the big problem with Wax is, if we look at this website here, which looks at is basically having a look at blockchain activity matrix, which is kind of something that's interesting, but you have to be a bit careful with this because different blockchains have different amounts of activity, so it's not necessarily a good example of what's going on. And they don't seem to have Tron in there either. Don't know what that is, but anyway. So we see here, if we look at the most active blockchains, is EOS by far accounts for 75% of all transactions. That kind of makes sense because EOS is designed to be a very fast blockchain that you would put lots of transactions on it. I mean, that's what it's designed for. Wax here is 10%. So the Wax blockchain is a fork of EOS, but there's more transactions going through the Wax blockchain than there is through Steam or Bitcoin or Ethereum or Kin or any of these other ones. So again, there's lots going on with Wax. We can see here activity. What is this? So we're saying an average is doing over 5 million transactions a day. The issue with kind of the Wax blockchain is, at the moment they kind of have sort of have their mainnet running, but they have most of the activity that's happening is not using the Wax token. So the Wax token at the moment is an ERC20 token, and obviously at some point when their mainnet is properly live, it's based on EOS, so they're going to have to move all the tokens over from basically an Ethereum-based project over to their own blockchain based on EOS. So at the moment, from my point of view at least, even though there's lots of activity going on on the Wax blockchain, there's no reason to own Wax apart from to own it if you were part of the ICO or you're speculating on the future value of it. So there's no user reason to own Wax. And in fact, if you use OP Skins, which is the first kind of test bed to be using kind of the Wax blockchain, you basically just use credit cards and fiat currency. So even at the moment, their own kind of prototyping kind of tech kind of prototype of how to use this kind of blockchain for trading. In this case, they're using it mainly for kind of loot box gambling type mechanics. You don't even use Wax. In fact, they kind of prefer you not to use Wax. So you have this kind of, again, it's a bit different to Enjin and Decentraland, in the sense that those projects haven't really launched yet to the public. Wax certainly isn't a fully fledged project yet, but even in the state it's in, there's no way to use Wax as a token. So it's kind of interesting. There's still lots of interest in Wax. They're still doing it as a company. They're pretty switched on. They're doing lots of deals. So just done a deal with Onimoka Brands, who are doing the Sandbox, which is a game coming out at the end of the year. They've done a deal with Fnatic, which is a big esports team. They're talking about this token holder update thing. That's back in November, so a bit of a way off. They've got their own Explorer as well. It's quite nice. There's lots going on in terms of activity, in terms of the company. They have quite a busy kind of blockchain, but again, there's no, we could use the term utility. I think it's gone out of fashion a little bit, but there's no utility for the token at the moment. So in a sense, there should be no surprise to us that there's no kind of reason for people to kind of own it at the moment, so there's no reason for the price to go up. So those are the three kind of main holdings that I've always had on the portfolio, and I'm not increasing those at any point in the near future, I don't think. Let's go on and look at LOOM, which is something that I have been purchasing small amounts of. Okay, so here we are with LOOM. So we can see here market cap just under $23 million. And our 24-hour trading volume is just under $3 million, so that's pretty reasonable. Looking at token performance across the options we have in terms of period of time, it's down. And actually, if we look at the max period of time LOOM's been available, so any tokens only been really tracked here since where are we? March. So relative newcomer in terms of well, compared to the other three that we've looked at. So I guess as we always see when a new token goes live, and certainly earlier in 2018, still people were quite bullish. So we have this kind of big upclick and then a falling away. So kind of similar to what you see with other tokens, but this is happening in May rather than January. So all-time highs down 95%, it's pretty much the same as anything else. So it kind of looks like it's just a kind of similar, following a similar trajectory, but there is something different going on here. So let's have a look at LOOM. Quickly at the website. So what is LOOM? So LOOM, read the tech. LOOM network is a layer 2 scaling solution for Ethereum. Network of side chains allowing for highly scalable games and user-facing dApps. So basically, it is a way of scaling Ethereum. That's pretty useful and interesting for people. Makes Ethereum much faster, and also you can do things on there without using gas. So obviously, if you do anything on the main Ethereum blockchain, you have to spend a bit of spend some ether, effectively prioritizing your transaction through the blockchain, which is kind of fine if you're just sending kind of tokens to people. But if you're playing a game and everything you have to do has this kind of gas transaction, it's not, even if it's not a lot of money, people get annoyed by it. So something like LOOM, there are other examples doing similar things, but LOOM just means you can take some of your kind of non-important or less important transactions that you would involve for, say, gameplay. So LOOM is actually making a card game called Zombie Battleground. So all the kind of transactions you do in the game would happen on a sidechain. But some of the things, if you were trading cards, for example, that would also happen on the Ethereum blockchain because you'd want the security of Ethereum to do that. So this is where LOOM are coming from. In terms of why they need a token, so the token is because it's a distributed proof of oh goodness me, I've forgotten the what is it? Proof of stake. Delegated proof of stake. Get it right. Delegated proof of stake sidechain. It means you have to have the tokens in order to kind of run the validator nodes that are required to run that infrastructure. So there is actually some reason for people to have LOOM network tokens. Because if you're a game developer or a dApp developer and you're needing to run these sidechains, you need validator nodes to be running effectively a little bit like the kind of mining infrastructure you would have on the main Ethereum blockchain. So you need to have some of this to kind of stake in order to get your system up and running. So again, as we kind of said with all the other projects we've looked at, LOOM is kind of on the edge of going live. So there's a few games testing it out that are sort of going through kind of some sort of testing, not really kind of publicly live yet. It's all taking a bit longer, I think, than people thought. And even when it does go live, it's going to be a few developers, going to have these tokens, and probably LOOM are going to give them tokens to begin with to get them up and running. So it will take, again, a long time before there's enough kind of scale going through the LOOM network for people to be buying these tokens in order to run their own validator node type thing. So again, there's no reason really for the price to be doing anything other than what it's doing, because there's no reason for people to be buying this kind of stuff. Which I guess is a good lesson for us to learn, that these projects are going live. LOOM is interesting. I mean, all these projects are interesting. That's why there's lots of projects out there that aren't interesting that I don't talk about. But these four in particular, I think are pretty interesting. They all are fairly close to having something running, or they have something running in some sort of kind of prototype or beta or alpha form. And it will be interesting to see over the coming months, as I can continue with this kind of a portfolio approach, is as they come live and as they get, presumably some of them will get some sort of audience, does that reflect at all in the token price? It may be that some of these kind of projects are really successful in terms of users, but the token price doesn't really reflect that. That may happen. That's kind of, I guess, the main intellectual curiosity part of this experiment. But that's where I'm coming from. Yeah, thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're in any way interested in blockchain games, and I guess the kind of potentially the financial implications of some of these projects. So we'll be doing an update every month. So next one in February. So I hope you do subscribe. Hope you find it interesting. Any comments, obviously stick them in the box below. But thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon.